Dobry.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, as compared to yesterday's evening, I see so few of you, but well, it's Saturday morning, it's clear. Serhij Żadan yesterday received an award, a Medal of Freedom. Good morning. Great writer, artist, musician, performer, poet, a man of so many talents, and first of all, full of unconsumed energy. I always admired him for writing books, of course, that's one thing, but when you see him on the stage with Sabaki w Kosmosie, that's just fire. When I'm driving some long road and I'm tired, when I'm drowsy, I put on a song 300 Kitajcew do Budapesztu, and that's such a power, like getting high. Of course, it's a joke. We don't have any plan for this meeting. Since we are both men of stage, we will improvise. Serhij suggested he will say something about Kharkiv because I'm going to visit him in Kharkiv in more or less 2 weeks. So he will just tell us how Kharkov looks like, because I just had one chance to eat a kebab there. Yes, good morning, colleagues. Andrzej, it's the second day in a row. I'm grateful for such a kind words. It's a pleasure. Right now, it's almost impossible to go abroad for me, so it's such a pleasure to be here. I gladly will tell you about Kharkiv. For me, it's easy and important to talk about Kharkiv so that people could visit Kharkiv. So each time when someone visits our city or from abroad, it's a great joy for us. So Kharkov right now is like an old grandma that has a lot of grandchildren, but these grandchildren come to visit very rarely. So each time they come, it's a great joy. But there are many stereotypes and confusions about life in Kharkiv. That's why people don't come to visit us. Right now, a front line is located 20 kilometers away from Kharkiv. A city is almost every day shelled, so it is under constant threat. But there are still more than 1 million people living in the city. Public transportation, pharmacies, shops, everything is open. City is running. City is beautiful, clean, all services are available during Christmas. There are decorations. Though theaters are closed in Kharkiv, libraries and concert halls, because it is dangerous to gather people together. Three days ago, a Russian rocket hit a children's kindergarten. Luckily, all the children are alive because they were in the basement. And that is a new reality of Kharkiv. Right now, people in the east of Ukraine are hiding underground. Literature nights, literature evenings, concerts, exhibitions, and artistic meetings are held underground. And we are waiting for you in Kharkiv. We will see you also in the basement room underground. So that's how Kharkov now looks like. During the day there is a traffic jams, and during the night Russians just shell the city. Military men go to the city to have some coffee, to eat a meal, and then go back to their positions. Yesterday we talked to you, we talked about Spain, about Ernest Hemingway. It reminds the time of Barcelona, of civil war in Spain, because you can get the positions on the trenches just by bus. I was asking Serhij, how does it look? He said, well, guys are using tram to get to the trenches and they go home. That's how it is, because it's a strange reality. On one side, it is a terrible, large-scale war. It's difficult to compare to what was before. But that's how life is going. Since we try to talk about literature, it is also a very important thing, and many do not understand that even with the circumstances of this horrible war, culture cannot be cancelled, because for many people it's about meanings that give people strength. So concert nowadays, it's not so much a opportunity to sing and perform, it's to see people you can rely on. It's feeling common energy, common strength. You mentioned Dogs in Space, Sobaki w Kosmosie. So it happened that half a years ago, half of the band mobilized. We are in Hartia Brigade, and our performance are usually take place on the positions of the front line. It is a very strange experience because it's without equipment, without microphones, of course. It's in some villages, in trenches, in some industrial buildings where some group can gather up, because Russians, when they see some group of people, they immediately try to strike it. Well, Ukrainians do the same thing. That's how this war now looks like. At the same time, it's quite an interesting experience that will be interesting to recall after all these events. Just like my Haidamaki, most of them are on the front. Sleepy, I famous guitarist, all the times away composing some riffs. Right now he's a sniper. In fact, many people of culture are now in the army, directors, writers, on different positions. Someone is directly on a combat position, someone is on rear, but it's all one military effort. It is a completely different level of culture, of literature. There is an artist, director, Oleg Sentsov. You might have heard about him. He's from Crimea. He was imprisoned in Russia. Right now he is fighting. He is on a combat battalion. He participated in Ukrainian counter-offensive in 2023 on southern direction, and he had a camera. He took part in combat, and later he noticed that he recorded a battle directly. He was injured during a shelling. He prepared a movie. He made a movie out of this footage. And it is clear that this movie would not appear before the war. It's clear it's completely different art, different cinema, different literature. Nowadays, in Ukraine, I think a definition of a frontline literature and poetry is gone, because there is more of the artists right now fighting. They write reports. It's more than combatants literature. So, I will go back to my Haidamaki, my Ukrainian band, when I felt real, when war was so real. Not everyone was able to come here. Some of them were mobilized already. They needed a permit to leave country. They showed, before on the phone, they would show that's a picture of my girlfriend, but now they would show pictures of, well, those are burnt down Russian tanks, and it struck me. They did it so calmly and like it was an everyday thing, like showing a picture of a new car. They were showing some dead bodies and burned metal equipment. That's how you see how common is this war. You get used to it in a way. At least you need to pretend to survive it all. I think it is impossible to get used to the war as such, but you can get used to many new circumstances. Clearly, you cannot get used to death. But you can get used to a constant threat. You can't get used to a normalize death, but you can get used to cold temperatures, that you lack food. Today, since this war is a total war, in Ukrainian army, I think we have more than 1 million people. It's a huge amount of people. And those are very different people. Majority of them are not professional soldiers. They don't have any military education. They never wanted to be soldiers. They never wanted to pick up arms or dress military uniforms.
But it is often that the artist, who is on a daily basis a pacifist, doesn't show any aggressive capacities. In war-like conditions, those internal resources activate, and he turns to be a leader. He is the person. For instance, my good friend, personal friend, is a commander now, and he has been my long-term friend, and he's an actor. He was an artist. He participated in exhibitions, played in TV series. He made films. When the war started, he volunteered and went to the army. And within our brigade, he organized a unit that is very efficient, one of the best. He is a perfect commander, great strategist. And it seems to me that people of the art will find it difficult to come back to the peace. I believe war will stay inside of you forever. Well, I remember war. I don't remember war, but I remember the generation of my parents and grandparents. That war was always present in talks, in thinking. Nothing more important happened in their lives, indeed. And it was long after the war, 1960s, 1970s, and in the countryside we kept repeating about war, but there was no true war in that countryside, in that village. There were Russians, there were Germans, they didn't burn the village, but the horror of war changed my father and my mother. I was born in the 1970s, and I remember very well the Soviet Union. I'm a Soviet man. And we had two realities, family reality and state reality. And that Soviet state was pathetic, joyful, and you could feel dishonesty from the very early age. While in the family, we didn't talk about the war because we could see that was an enormous trauma. The true war realia, well, we met those in the 1980s. For instance, I was born and spent my first 17 of life in Starobielsk, that is close to the Russian border. We had an official Soviet version how the city survived the war. That was a heroic story because it was officially the first city released from Germans, liberated from the Germans, and for a short period of time, it was the official Soviet capital of Ukraine. But in the story, there is no information about the camp for the Polish military officers that was there in the 1940s. They held them there before sending them to Kharkiv and Katyn and before shooting them to death. Also, in this story, there is no information about a cemetery where Polish officers were buried. I don't know what's the situation like today, because the city is under occupation. And we only learned about the tombs of the 1990. Also, in our history, we didn't have mass murders of local Jews that were shot by the German Nazi. Simply, we didn't speak about it. Nobody spoke about it. So, war is a process of discovering horrible things. You can imagine entering a flat where somebody used to live. You open a drawer and you discover something scary. It's happening all the time. Somebody's trauma, somebody's wound, somebody's bitter experiences. I believe when we speak about this war, the key point is to keep talking about it so nothing gets lost, nothing gets forgotten. For instance, we forget many things nowadays. In 2022, after half a year of occupation, the city Izium was liberated from Russians. And the Russians shot civilians, and there are mass graves that were undiscovered. For instance, the Russians shot to death Volodya Vokulenko, a poet, a writer, a Ukrainian patriot, only because he was a patriot. That's why they killed him. The city is coming back to life, is trying to do so. A book has been published about that writer, but people keep walking to pick mushrooms into forests, and the forests are mined. And you need to remember that generally everything changes in life. Landscapes, when you travel by boat, you can see there are lots of empty places, but you can assume that a tenement house might have stood here. There were people, they had their own experiences, but the people are gone, the building is gone, and young people look at that place and they see the landscape differently. Well, you know, with memory, it's not that we are going to lose it. We suffer from overload. The times are different than those of our parents, grandparents. It's a different war. It's on the web, it's depicted in billions of photographs and pictures circulating through endless web. And we need, I'm afraid we will need to remove that memory. We won't be able to absorb it in its enormous volume and its terrifying content. We will need to remove it, run away from it. No, or cherry pick the most important issues. It's like nothingness. That's what I think of memory. My parents, my grandparents didn't speak. The individual images that a Gestapo man wanted to shoot my grandmother. She was against the wall. She picked his parabellum gun and it locked. That's why I'm here. And my mother. These were tiny details. When you connect to them, you think it's so precious an image for you. When you have billions of pictures, what can you do with them? You are helpless. I think that memory of the World War II, this collective memory, has undergone sort of transformation. It was a bit different in Poland and a bit different in Ukraine. We had a whole set based on social realism of films, literature devoted to that very topic. And of course, it was ideologically correct, but in fact it was false. And after the Soviet Union collapsed, that culture didn't live any longer because the picture, the art, the literature did not really reflect the true picture of the war. Then the 1990s, somehow Ukrainian literature skipped the topic. Perhaps it was too early to address that Russian Soviet vision. Lots of topics were neglected. And in Poland, the topic is present in the public reflection, and there are lots of interesting topics. We learn about true topics like the Warsaw Ghetto, the Warsaw Uprising. Of course, war is a painful topic, but it deserves more than art, so that some things are preserved and remembered. And it needs different perspective, points of view.
I'm sure that it's so important to write about this war that Russians started against Ukraine, so that it was described not only by Ukrainians. It is obvious that Ukrainians write a lot about that. I'm sure it will be a main subject for next decades. And it is clear that Russians write a lot about this war. They write it from their perspective. It's a parallel reality, hard to correlate with what really happens. For Russians, it's so easy to logically put into Russian Soviet military tradition. It's very natural to them, starting from the 18th century, when first victories of Russian Empire was celebrated, described. So for them, it is very easy to describe their empirism. However, I think it is very important to have possibility to write about this war or make movies about this war to writers and directors from America. I think it gives a new, unexpected perspective to say, maybe not without bias, but to say with a certain distance, gives a completely different perspective. I know that in Poland we already have novels, reports and books about this war, and it is very important that Polish authors for Polish audience try to tell this story. I don't know about Poles, but we published a book of Tomasz Foro, a great book actually, two of them. First one is about war in Donbass, and second one is about the proper, so to say, world war. And it's an encyclopedical book. He spent so much time on it, so I also recommend you, not only Serhij Żadan, but Tomasz Foro from our publishing. But what you also mention is that someone from outside would come and use Ukrainian war as a material. Well, I will tell you there is a huge jealousy. That's obvious, and there is a lot of attention and very careful reading from Ukrainian side when someone else writes about them. And that's clear. We are really afraid that we really are cautious to have someone write about us in a truthful way. we afraid of something non-objective. We really care that people would speak in a correct way about our war, not to lie about it. And we Ukrainians, we often think that we are not understood. And this is absolutely clear because we have a huge need for justice, because this war is unjust. We have been attacked, we are destroyed, so we want to survive and we want justice. So the statement about this war, reporting about this war, is a part of such justice. But there is a thing that often, sometimes, we do not notice, that others try to help us. There is an empathy, there is a will to support us. We not fully recognize that. You can get it on an emotional level. It's completely clear when you are under threat, when you are vulnerable. First of all, you see a threat. But from pragmatic perspective, this is not right. Because me as a writer, I clearly understand that a novel written by a Pole somehow will be more comprehensible for Polish reader. People are in the same language group, one paradigm, in one cultural and literature tradition. I'm not saying that Polish writers would write better about Ukrainian war than Ukrainian ones, but what I'm saying is that they are capable to write something, to notice something that we cannot. For example, I have a clear understanding how subjective I am. Certain things are disabled, some receptors are switched off. I just don't notice certain things. It's what we said before, it's impossible to get used to a war, you can't get used to it as such, but some things are very easily become inert. You simply lose a sharpness of reception of the threat, some circumstances, some news. You start considering it to be something sharp, something worth paying attention to. It's just I really well remember a spring of 2022. At that time, every day I published something on my Facebook page. Let's say some of my friends or people that I know died. You posted about it. Or a new market or shop opened in your town. You write about it. The book that was published in Czarny, what war in that journal that was published in your editor's office. Yes, very quickly written from day to day, a journal. And now I'm not writing about it because every day I'm there, I'm on the danger zone, I talk to military men, I talk with our fighters, but you don't write about it anymore this much because you don't have these emotions related to that. You just do it every day, but you don't have this need to write it down. Well, to write, you need to have a calm and boring time. That's a condition, actually, for writing down a novel. Nothing happens, then you have a strength and capacity to write some story. I can't imagine writing in your situation, like Ukrainian writers, except for the attempts of, well, I don't know. I completely agree with you. To write a novel, you need a 2 or 3 years of a free time. Perhaps that's why in Ukraine some poems, short prose, journals are written every day, a short form. It's like a literacy picture. You know, maybe that's how this war is. It's not so big, epic, huge armies that would fight against each other. There are small things, electronic drone warfare. It changed so much that there is no description of a drone warfare before. It's such a new thing, such a cruel thing, such a weird thing that you don't fight people anymore. You know, yes, on one side, yes, but on the other side, try to remember, if we go back to First World War and Second World War, most of the texts were written after 5 or 10 years, when after war was over. What was written during the war or immediately after the end of the war was kind of impressionistic, something that reminds a photograph, a momentary composition. If I'm not wrong, there is a journal from Warsaw Uprising. It was written down also immediately on a hot tracks. And it's not like an epos, but more like a journal. That's why I think that clearly there will be novels and big movies about this war, but perhaps later. And not because there's nothing to say about it, but that's what you said. We don't have a time now to talk about it. Because there is no time for writing, but also there is no time for reading. As you know, right now everyone is reading Platform X, Facebook. You know, it's more for my generation. Now, social media, everyone is reading a shorter form of information. Most of the information is fake. You don't have the understanding that you have an information, so you are in a constant search of the real information. So there will be a question to our new poetry how to separate fakes or maybe describe killing people if you don't see it. It's all the time a war of the screens. There is no epic element on that. It's something really terrible and really modern. Old war and old literature will give floor to some new strange language. Indeed, it is absolutely different feeling of death. One thing is when you see a death on the other side of the screen, even if you have some direct relation to that. The other thing is when you are in a trench. The further you are, the more this war becomes similar to some huge, terrifying computer game. Exactly, you don't feel it, you don't feel the smell, it's not dirty, it's not sticky. And I was thinking about a paradigm of a warrior, how it changed. Those are not anymore big, pumped up Rambos. No, those are nerds in the glasses. Those are girls with drones. They will find that's a shift, that's a big change.
Я припускаю, можу так собі трішки пофантазувати. Очевидно, світ божевільний, і, очевидно, це не остання війна. Очевидно, в світі далі будуть війни. Але я думаю, що це остання війна, де піхота ще має таке важливе значення.
It seems to me that we are going to have more wars on this planet, but when we speak about this very war, it's one of the latest, last wars where the infantry still matters. We have a stormtrooper who still plays some role. But as you said, those guys and girls wearing goggles that fight in a distance. Well, war may that may happen if war is about territories, but wars may be only to kill, to disintegrate. Of course, when we speak now about Middle East, we can see that infantry doesn't play any role. There are drone impacts, missile impacts, fighter jet impacts. One projectile kills, destroys. And for Russians, it's very important because we can see that if they cannot move, change the front line, they send 2 or 3 reconnaissance troops. They get into a village, they put in the Russian flag, take a selfie, and declare they have conquered the village, and they vanish. That's a land of absurd. They have a vast territory, dirty, empty. There is one brothel, so to say, in this large space, and they want more. Put this flag 1 kilometer further. That's weird thinking. Well, Russians have this need to create an image of victory. They need this image of victory. They need it for their own public. They create an illusion of victory that they need to push forward. That's why this is so critical for them. So let me repeat myself. That is why we need to now write a lot about it, because this information will start to fade away. Emotions will go away, and we may forget so many things. That is why we need to talk about it, speak about it. So we started our conversation by saying, you will come to Kharkiv, and we want you to write about it. It's not about the frontline military operations. It's just to record in writing your impressions of coming to our city of Kharkiv. We are waiting for you in Kharkiv. Well, it's close to the front line. I was there. I felt I couldn't write about it. There were those guys who stayed there. What could I write about it? That I came for 20, 15 hours or so? But I keep writing about Ukraine, but it's my Ukraine. I recently spent my holiday in Ukraine. We were supposed to go to Central Asia, but I said, it's stupid, we should go to Ukraine and write a civil novel. I used to write a lot about Russia, and I feel those pricks of conscience that I was an idiot. So I'm going to buy a new notebook for my trip to Kharkiv. I feel it's maturing in me, and it's going to be a very private Ukraine of mine. Well, we are informed our time is about to pass, so I need to say, before this round of applause, over there are girls and boys, volunteers with boxes where we collect money for Serhij's military unit in Kharkiv. We collect for equipment, vehicles. So there are those kids. The boxes are named the Frontline Foundation. This is our foundation, and we deal with that sort of thing. No intermediaries in between. If we buy equipment, we deliver it right to the front line to prevent any tricks. Serhij Żadan, Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
So we just had an emergency landing in Poland, in Łódź. Yeah, don't worry guys, we won't be here for long.
Lads,
Hello, vlog. So I know we were supposed to show you some wild animals and a bit more sun, but
Yeah, instead we have to spend 2 days in this boring place.
come on.
Did you say boring? I will show you beautiful nature and animals and even more. And you will see what this region has to offer. Deal?
So we said yes, because why not, right? And this girl took us around the whole region. We ate pierogies. We saw some Polish art. We saw some wild animals. We got spiritual. And after all, we fell in love with this place.
W kinie doceniam prawdziwe emocje,
Na boisku pilnuję czystej gry.
W kuchni poszukuję autentycznych smaków.
ale w internecie jest to trudniejsze.
W internecie wobec informacji też trzeba być sędzią. Dezinformacja jest jak bramka strzelona ze spalonego.
Więc jeśli coś we mnie wzbudza emocje, daję sobie czas. Może ktoś specjalnie chce mnie zagotować, bym uległa manipulacji.
Filtruj informacje.
Sprawdzaj ich źródła.
Nie masz pewności? Nie udostępniaj.
Postaw na czysty przekaz.
It can look like this, or like this. It is threatened, but it is our responsibility to protect it. For each person, it means something different. But when we reach it, we all know what it looks like, what it sounds like, or how it feels. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together. Freedom.
Do PKO Banku Polskiego przenosi się nowy klient.
Weź się, przenieść się jest easy. Czaruś, wytłumacz.
Otwierasz konto w PKO Banku Polskim i masz święty spokój. Przeniosą kasę i zlecenia stałe, a pracodawcy poinformują. Ogarniesz to przez internet. Bo to dobry bank jest.
Ej, widzę cię. Wolisz w oddziale? Dawaj do nas.
Otwórz konto w PKO Banku Polskim i dołącz do 12 milionów klientów. PKO, twój bank polski.
Do zgłoszeń? Gotowi? Start!
Ja zgłoszę bibliotekę!
Ja, pierwszy basen w gminie.
Ja amfiteatr gra od naszej orkiestry. Wszystko w waszych rękach. Co powstanie dzięki wsparciu totalizatora sportowego w twojej okolicy? Zgłoś obiekt sportowy lub kulturalny. Wejdź na stronę gdygrasz.pl, bo gdy grasz, wszystko gra.
Well, Atlas Network is, as the name suggests, a network, and it's global. We work all around the world. We're based in the U.S. It's a network, that is to say, organizations that share common values of limited government, of free enterprise, personal liberty, of personal responsibility.
Atlas Network provides training and support to help build capacity, but most importantly, we give our partners the tools they need to be successful.
Telewizja Polska to więcej tego, co widzowie cenią najbardziej. Pasjonujące filmy i seriale, a w obsadzie najbardziej gorące nazwiska. Największe sportowe imprezy i momenty, które przejdą do historii. Bieżące wydarzenia, którymi żyje Polska i świat. Przebojowe koncerty, które łączą w zabawie wszystkich Polaków. Znakomite spektakle, które gromadzą rekordową publiczność. Telewizja Polska. Otwórz się na więcej.
Mam plan na bezpieczną firmę. To plan firmowy z cybertarczą, która blokuje zagrożenia w sieci.
Cyberbezpieczeństwo? Masz od tego Orange. Teraz cybertarcza za 0 zł we wszystkich planach firmowych, a w wybranych smartfony 50% taniej. Orange tu jest.
Kiedy zapala się lampka on air, to jest najlepszy moment.
Nie ma jednego instrumentu, który lubię najbardziej. To zawsze jest kontekst.
Uwielbiam sport bez obrazu właśnie z tej perspektywy, kiedy to ja mogę ten obraz kreować.
Pusty stadion nie jest cichy. Tam gołębie startują.
Jak ja bym chciała, żeby z mojego radia było słychać "będzie okej".
Ono może być cichutko w tle. Radio, które jest przyjacielem tego odbiorcy, przyjacielem człowieka.
Polska stolica kultury. Jesteś na miejscu.
Myślisz, że to ktoś wyjątkowy, miłośnik kultury, kto sypie cytatami z pamięci. A to może być ktoś, kto na wakacje pakuje książkę, tę samą co rok temu. To możesz być ty. Bo czytanie nie jest dla wybranych, jest dla wszystkich. Podziel się tym.
PL Music Video Awards, festiwal polskich wideoklipów, spotkania, projekcje, warsztaty, do tego gala finałowa i wybór najlepszych polskich teledysków. Zapraszamy do Łodzi 4-6 grudnia, szczegóły na www.plmva.com.